Welcome to the fourth part of our study, a comparative study between the Quran and the Bible. Two books that are holy for so many people in this world. And I want to repeat that our goal is not to criticize the one or the other, or to say one is holy, one is not holy. I'm not here to say that, just to try to see the similarities. And I think you have been very much impressed by seeing a common message on the question of suffering, not coming from God, but coming from the devil, a creator of God who was proud in both books and wanted to take the place of God and could only do it by criticizing God, by saying bad things behind his back, by just mobbing him in front of the universe, pretending that God is not a God of love, that we obey him by interest and not by love. The last question we finished with was this one. Why didn't God destroy the devil when this happened? When the crisis came, God could have just annihilated the devil and then there would have been no more problem. But God didn't do it. Why? To explain you this, let me use a picture. It's just an illustration. It's not a true story, of course. It could be, but this story is just a little help for us to understand what really happened. Let's suppose we have here two flowers, which are not flowers in our case, they are human beings. One is a girl, since we're in Germany, in a German studio. Let's call her Hannah, let's say. And we have a boy here, and the boy is Hans. Okay, so this is a very classical story. Hans loves Hannah, and Hannah loves Hans. Now, let's suppose that somebody else comes into the story. We'll call him maybe Karl. Karl comes to Hannah and says, "Are you sure that you love Hans?" "Oh, yes, I love him. I love him so much." "And do you think he loves you?" "Oh, yes, I'm sure he loves you." Now what happened is that Karl brings some doubt in the mind of Hannah, saying, "I know that Karl doesn't love you. He just said that he loves you because you have rich parents, so he wants the money. But if you marry him, I tell you what, he's going to be like the devil. He's going to be like a dictator." At that stage, the girl doesn't know what to say. There's some doubt in the mind of Hannah. Maybe the other one, Karl, he's right. Maybe Hans is a dictator. And there's doubt in her mind, a big question point. Now let's go back to that illustration, to the reality we had. Here we have God. Sorry again to compare God with a flower, especially a flower made of plastic. But it's just to give us an idea. God and the universe were one, united in love. But somebody came with the devil and pretended that God would not act out of love, but out of interest. And so the devil brought doubt into the mind of, not Hannah in this case, but in the mind of the creator of God. Suppose Hans would kill the other one. He would destroy him, put him in prison, give some rat poison in his food, just get rid of him. And tell the lady, "You only have to listen to me, don't listen to others." Maybe he would organize her to get married as soon as possible so that she doesn't have the idea to doubt about this connection, this relationship. Suppose this would happen. What would Hannah think? She would probably think, the other one was right. And that's why he was killed. And if myself, I don't obey, I might be killed or punished as well. And of course, she's going to obey to her husband, but not because of love, just because of fear. And maybe one day she'll try to find a chance to escape and go somewhere else. In other words, if God had destroyed the devil, the whole universe would have the idea that maybe the devil was right. And that's why God destroyed him. God was afraid of the devil. And maybe the devil was right, and we want to know if he was right, but we cannot do it. So what are we going to do? To rebel ourselves against God, as the devil did. Some would obey to God because of fear, but not because of love. And that's not what God wanted. So let's go back to the story. Hans didn't destroy Karl, but he told his girlfriend, his sweetheart, I love you. And because I love you, I give you freedom. You are free to choose to listen to him or to me. And that's exactly what happened in the universe. God gave Satan a chance to prove that his affirmations were real or not. He went to the devil, if we can say like this, that's why we read in the Quran last time, and say, I want to give you a chance. Just show what you pretend. But by the way, we have similar situation in politics. If there's a government that does not allow any opposition, everybody would think that the opposition would be right, and that's why it's forbidden. And by the way, we know that opposition has always a good role, because when you are in the opposition, you can always pretend you would do it better if you were on power. So when opposition comes into power, then we know if they are better or not. That's the only chance. But here, we're not talking about politics, we're talking about love. And again, let's remember, love never forces. If love forces, it's no more love, it's force. God had to give the freedom to human beings to decide whom they would choose. And from that moment, the books that we consider holy in both religions, the Quran and the Bible, Muslims, the Quran, Christians, the Bible, have the same message that God gave a chance to the devil to show the veracity of his accusations. In a certain way, we could say that there is like a trial, like a court, where God is accused and he has to prove that he's right. But who is going to prove this? You and I are those who have to take a stand from one side or the other. Like Hannah in our story has to decide to whom she would go. We have to decide if we want to follow God or if we want to follow the other side. I forget to tell you that obviously Hans will not just say, Karl, you have a chance, or tell to Hannah, you decide what you want. But he will try to show that he's the best by inviting her for dinner, by giving her her presents, what she wants, to just show his love in the best possible way. But even by doing that, the lady, Hannah, is still free to serve, to love him, or to go another way. Love can never force. Probably you know the story of Aladdin in the lamp, with the genie, this beautiful oriental story. And the genie comes out of the lamp, this kind of spirit who can do miracles. And he says to Aladdin, I can do everything for you. I can fulfill all your wishes, with 3 exceptions. Maybe you remember the story, which exception he's telling us. He's telling, first, I cannot kill anybody. Secondly, I cannot resurrect anybody. And third, Aladdin, I cannot force anybody to love you. Love can never force. Love is always free. We can only decide to serve God by freedom. So now we want to go into the books, the Quran, the Bible, and see which text can help us understand this. First, we start with the text taken from the Psalms, in Arabic Zabur, Psalm number 50, and we read 2 verses, the verse 4 and 6. He shall call to the heavens from above, and to the earth, that he may judge his people. Let the heavens declare his righteousness, for God himself is judge. The text we have read shows that God wants to call a kind of court where all are invited. This is a spiritual court. And he said that God wants us to declare his righteousness. We have to decide if God is really a God worthy to be called righteous or if he's a kind of dictator. That's all about the holy books. The idea of God. Who is God? Is God a God of love, or is he a dictator who is just rewarding his friends again and punishing his enemies? Let's read another text taken from the New Testament, this time from Injil, Ephesians chapter 3, verse 10, where it is said, to the intent that now the manifold wisdom of God might be made known by the church to the principalities and powers in the heavenly places. This text mentions the heavenly places, principalities, other powers beyond our planet, spiritual beings, and the goodness of God, his justice, his love will be shown by the church. Very interesting. The church, those who remain faithful to God, those who say yes, despite of all the suffering in this world, we remain faithful to God. Wonderful idea. And there are many texts like this in the Bible. Let's go to the Quran in a text taken from the Surah 12, Yusuf, which is Joseph in the Bible, Yusuf, verse 5. His father, which is Jacob, says, my dear little son, relate not your vision to your brothers, lest they concoct a plot against you. For Satan is to man an avowed enemy. Here we have the idea that Satan is an enemy of human beings. It's not just the enemy of God, it's the enemy of everyone who would take a stand from the side of God. Let's read another text in the Quran as well. Al-Araf, this is Surah 7, verse 16 and 17. He said, because you have thrown me out of the way, the devil is speaking here, lo, I will lie in wait for them on your straight way. Then I will assault them from before them and behind them, from their right and their left, nor will you find in most of them gratitude for your mercies. We could say that the devil is betting something. He is saying, God, I am sure that if you give me the chance to show what I pretend, no one is going to stay on your side. The human beings are just obeying you because they have to. Because you are the ruler, you have the army of the world in your hand. But if I get out of the opposition, and you give me the chance to reign, the chance to show my pretensions, you will see that everybody will follow me and not you. And that's how the war, the cosmic war, went down from heaven to the planet Earth. Another text from the Quran here, Al-Hijr. This is Surah 15, verse 39 to 40. Again, the devil speaks and says, O my Lord, because you have put me in the wrong, I will make wrong fair seeming to them on the earth, and I will put them all in the wrong, except your servants among them, sincere and purified by your grace. Here the devil acknowledges that there will be some people who are on the side of God, what the Bible calls the church of God. Church not in the sense of a Christian group, but in the sense of those, the group of those who remain faithful to God. And the devil has to acknowledge that he will have no power over them. Let's keep on reading the text, how the text continues. Again, the Quran, Al-Hijr, chapter 15, Surah 15. We read verse 41-42. Allah says, this way of my sincere servants is indeed a way that leads straight to me. For over my servants no authority shall you have, except such as put themselves in the wrong and follow you. God knows, as well as the devil, even better than him, that the people who have decided to remain faithful to him will remain faithful to him whatever happens. And that's why we come back to the story of Job, of Ayub. Remember that the devil said, Job is only obeying God because God gave him everything. He is rich, and that's why he's good. Take his riches again, you will see that he will go away from you. God is ready to go into that story and to let the devil take away everything that Job has. His health, his possessions, his family, everything. except his life. God knows exactly that Job is not as the devil pretends. God knows exactly that Job is able to remain faithful, not able, but willing. That's the right word. In the same way, you and I might be tempted. We might have some trouble. And I tell you what, every time you take a decision to follow God in some way, maybe to read the books you consider holy, maybe just to obey to what you understand, you will see that the devil is trying to disturb you in your life, to bring some trouble. But God lets only things happen that He knows you are able to bear, you are able to stand. You know, it's a little bit like when you say, again, it's an example, but let's say my motorbike is better than yours. Okay, let's go into the desert, to the Sahara, and drive and see if my motorbike is better than yours. And you only go into that if you know that your motorbike is able to go the way down to the south. If you know the motorbike is not able, you will not go into that. So again, that's just an illustration to show that God knows us so well that He allows the devil to tickle us, to bring troubles in our life. But God knows to which extent we are going to stand. And He will not let anything happen that we cannot bear, that we cannot master, that we cannot support, and in the day, God will take away this test and bring us back to where we were, as He did for Job at the end of his life eventually. Another text in the Quran, Surah 23, says, that's what we have to say this time. It's not the devil who talks, it's not God who talks, it's you and I who have to say, "Oh my Lord, I seek refuge with you from the suggestions of the evil ones. And I seek refuge with you, O my Lord, against their temptation." It means that if we are faithful to God, we seek refuge against the temptation and the suffering given by the evil powers. We are safe on the side of the champion. Another text, this time in Surah 22, verse 78, Al-Hajj, where God says, "Strive in this cause as you ought to strive. He has chosen you and has imposed no difficulties on you in religion. It is the cult of your father Abraham." The word used here in the Quran to strive is the word jahada. We know this word in Arabic, the jihad, the holy war. Nowhere the Quran speaks of the holy war as a physical war. Always this word to strive, which is used here, applies to a spiritual struggle, a spiritual warfare between the devil and God, where God is victorious. And God says, strive, stay on the right side, or religious jihad, or spiritual warfare, is to stay on the side of God, whatever happens. It's something that has to do with much energy. The word jahada is used in different senses, even in modern Arabic, for the voltage in electricity, for example, the tension. So the idea is here that we are in a tension between two powers, that when we stay on the side of God, we are like protected. It's like when you take a piece of a magnetic something and you put it between two pieces of iron. And when you come close to one of them, immediately the attraction grows and the other loses its attraction. And that's the same with God. If you come close to God, the devil loses his attraction against us. This is the jihad we have. This is the only jihad the Quran knows. Beautiful. And it is said, by the way, this jihad is the cult of Abraham. That's the religion that Abraham had. Abraham, the common father of both religions, Islam and Christianity, through the Jews, of course. The cult of the religion of Abraham, through submission to God, through tension to stay at any price, at any cost, on the right side in this spiritual war. That's why it is called here the spiritual way, the straight way, the way that brings to God, the way that God has chosen for us. But we'll talk more about this, so don't worry, this is just a beginning. Let's take another text from the Surah 2, Al-Baqarah, this time verse 256, where the Quran says, there is no compulsion in religion. This is a text that all Muslims knows and should know. La ikra fi ad-diniya. No compulsion, no force. Remember the story of Aladdin. Only freedom. Without freedom, there is no love. Love always gives freedom. God opens the cage and gives the devil the right, the chance to prove his affirmations. And in the same way, God gives you and me the freedom to follow Him or not to follow Him. And the right way to follow Him is to follow the way of Abraham, as we have read. My dear friends, we have the choice here. We're not talking about becoming Christian as if you're a Muslim, or become a Muslim if you are a Christian. But just follow the way of Abraham, the way we are going to study in the following chapter of this series. Everything that God has created was perfect, beautiful, genius. You see, everything we do as human beings is just copying nature. Whatever we invent is not an invention. Actually, it's just discovering something that exists in nature and trying to copy it. Why did God create you? Why did God create me? And the answer is very simple. God created you because He likes you. We could say He loves you, but let's first say He likes you. He likes the way He created you. He has a plan for you. God created you for you to be in eternity with Him, a special piece, a unique piece in His collection. The angels are protesting against God and saying, God, are you sure you want to do this? Why do they protest? Just because the devil has told them God is not rightful. God is doing a mistake. God is not wise by doing this. And we should tell it to God, and we should rebel against this. Love gives freedom, and love gives ample information of what is going to happen if we go this way or if we go that way.